Breaking tonight, the man tapped to root out voter fraud in America, firing back. Last week, Chris Kobach, the vice chairman of the White House Commission on Election Integrity, who is also running for governor of Kansas, sent a letter to all 50 states requesting voter information. As a result, he and his commission experienced some bipartisan blowback, accusing the commission of threatening privacy. After reports that some 40-plus states stood against his effort, he issued a statement this afternoon, writing in part, "Despite media distortions and obstruction by a handful of state politicians, this bipartisan commission on election integrity will continue its work because the public has a right to know." Charles Hurt is a political columnist for the Washington Times and a Fox News contributor. And Zach Patankas is a former aide to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Zach, one of the things that the Democrats have apparently said is that this is unnecessary. And yet you have a lot of people in the country that are worried about the integrity of the electoral system. Why do you think this is an unnecessary commission?
Sure. Well, the reason that it's an unnecessary commission is that its goal is actually not to look for voter fraud. If there is very little evidence that voter fraud actually exists. In fact, more people are hit by lightning in the United States than commit voter fraud. And so the states are really standing up to this administration for two reasons. One, they're concerned about the consolidation of this information, names, addresses, birth dates, last four digits of Social Security numbers in one place, which is a hacker's dream. And the second is how this information is going to be used. Chris Kobach, who you mentioned, is running this commission in the state of Kansas, has used this very type of information to purge voter rolls of American citizens who share names, for example, with undocumented immigrants. And so we're very concerned that this information, it will be used as a vehicle to do that nationwide.
And yet, Charlie, there is concern across the country. In fact, you had President Trump saying in a tweet, "Numerous states are refusing to give information to the very distinguished voter fraud panel. What are they trying to hide?" And one of Kobach's points is that most of this information is publicly available, and that the states that are hesitant are just awaiting to see what all they need to provide. And yet, Charlie, I did want to get your take on this, because there are some Republican secretaries of state who are saying, hold on a second, Washington, D.C. is not getting a hold of my information.
Right. And of course, those Republican governors that have said that, they're kind of taking a states' rights approach to this, saying, look, man, the federal government screws up everything it touches. You're not going to get involved in this. We jealously guard this part of elections, and we're not going to let the federal government ruin it. And by the way, I applaud that, because that's the way the framers intended the balance between state governments and the federal government. But that aside, what I think the Governor Kobach is trying to do here is he wants to audit, certainly what Donald Trump wants to. He wants to audit this. He wants to see how bad this problem is. And Zach, the point that Zach made about more people, about lightning getting struck by lightning, that's bogus. We actually know how many people get struck by lightning. We have no idea how many people are, commit voter fraud. We do know there's lots of evidence out there. In Virginia, for example, there are thousands of names over the past couple of years have been found who are illegally on the rolls. And yes, there have been efforts to purge some of those people, but why wouldn't you want to purge people who don't belong on the rolls from the rolls?
That's a good question, Zach. Why not find some sort of accommodation? This is a bipartisan commission. Surely everybody can agree that you don't want people who are either here illegally or fraudulently voting to be on those rolls. I mean, isn't that something that you think that you could agree with?
Well, if someone shouldn't be on the rolls, then they shouldn't be on the rolls, certainly. But that is not the way that this information has been used in the past, certainly in the state of Kansas, or, for example, in the state of Florida, where they take a list of felons and then they match it against people who are not felons. And if you coincidentally share the same name and you show up, you realize that your name has been dropped off the rolls. That is not trying to make a correct list or a working list. That is an attempt, and I think a deliberate attempt to suppress the votes, because most of those individuals tend to be members of the minority communities.
Well, we'll see. The commission just getting started. They actually have a meeting July 19th in Washington, D.C., so we'll see how that goes. Thank you both.
Thanks, Dana.
Right.